You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and Michael.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to number 2 of Guitar Talk with Dave and Michael. Mike, how's it going?
It's going.
You've been working pretty hard. I've noticed just trying to correspond back and forth. You're always working, which is good.
Yes, I'm one of a select few, I guess, that are not sequestered at home. I'm working, and I'm working a lot. Which is why we haven't been communicating regularly. So I apologize for that.
Oh no, it's all good. It's all good. I keep myself busy by watching videos of people writing inspirational songs, which is like there's this group on Facebook, and it's horrendous. But it's absolutely comedy for me, so I enjoy it in that respect.
Uh-huh.
But it's been really funny watching these people sing about like writing songs about viruses and just it's so dumb. But yeah, it's awful. But you know it's funny because what's that?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, actually, if you're writing songs about a virus, what are you going to rhyme with virus?
Right. Cyrus. What'd you kill Cyrus for? No reason. Remember that was the Warriors? You remember the Warriors?
Oh, yeah, Warriors come out and play.
Yeah.
Yay.
What'd you kill Cyrus for? No reason. Just like to do things like that. David Patrick Kelly playing the bad guy in the Warriors. Right. I always liked him.
Yeah, you know what? Speaking of what I've seen him in more recently is he is the body collector in the John Wick movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's the guy that when they had this whole it seems like everyone's an assassin in these movies, and it's actually a business. And with that being said, they have a cleanup crew when they kill a lot of people that come in, and the appears to be the leader of the cleanup crew is that person.
David Patrick Kelly.
Yeah. So he's still out there kicking. Yeah.
He was in a great movie years ago called Dreamscape. Do you remember that one? It was Dennis Quaid. Oh, it's great. Dennis Quaid and David Patrick Kelly. He was also, I think, in 48 Hours. Right? Wasn't he Luther?
Well, you know what? Might have been. I mean, that's kind of ringing a bell. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely got typecast as a bad guy early on and does it really well.
Yeah. He was Luther. And also in 48 Hours was Jonathan Banks, who plays Mike on Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad.
Okay, you and I talked about this briefly. I know you're a big fan of both, and I really haven't seen either yet, but per our conversation, I do want to take a look at those. I'm a big Bryan Cranston fan. I think he's a great actor. And I guess based on the premise of this series, it sounds like I may have misjudged it. I've seen a couple of sniglets, though, of Breaking Bad, and there was some crazy scene where there was I guess he was a bad guy. He got like blown up or something, and like half of his face was gone or something. And it was, the effects were amazing. I mean, it looked really.
Oh yeah. That was Gus. That was Giancarlo Esposito.
Okay.
Who got blown up? Yeah. This is a spoiler if anyone's not seen it, but it's definitely something to watch. But I kind of wanted to talk about what people were doing because we were talking earlier today, and I was like, there's not a lot really going on as far as in the guitar world, so much in the news with, any of the manufacturers or anything. However, I did want to talk about this as a great opportunity for people to practice, to work and hone their skills. It's funny when you start recording yourself, and I deal with a lot of students that do this. They record themselves because they're thinking about either posting something on YouTube or posting it on Facebook for everybody to enjoy on the internet and whatnot. And they realize, recording yourself, how do you not make mistakes? Or they go back and they hear themselves and they're like, yeah, it's not that good. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's how I hear you when you play. And if you're not hearing that, it's good to record yourself and go back and listen and see what you were doing and try to hone those skills. You know, it's a lot of people practice where they work on scales and whatnot. I'll tell you something that really helped me when I started my channel was I tried doing songs that I had never played before.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff that I thought before that I probably wouldn't be comfortable playing. So I remember I did, there was one that was the song Play the Game Tonight by Kansas.
Okay.
And there's a great, remember that song? Play the game tonight. Can you tell me if it's wrong or it's right? Is it where? Of course, it's sung much higher. And there's a violin solo that's like, and I was like, oh man, I'm never gonna play that. So I ended up breaking it down, learning it, and I literally had to play it slow for like 3 days, just watching TV to get the muscle memory because it was so awkward, non-guitar position like. And then I did it. I was like, I'm gonna go record it at full speed, and I had no problem. But I think that's something that people don't do is push themselves. And now we have all the time in the world. We're sitting around doing nothing. People have their thumb up their ass. I mean, you are working, but most people are home complaining on Facebook. They're like, I'm bored. Well, pick up your guitar and try to figure something out that you're not necessarily, you know, whether it's a new tuning. What do you do when you practice?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned the muscle memory thing. I played guitar for many years, and because work and life got in the way, I didn't play as much as I would have liked to. Okay. With that being said, my life has changed a lot, like a lot of people's lives over the years. And I found myself rediscovering the guitar and my love for the guitar and for music in general, and wanting to spend more time with it again. And so I've been doing that the last 3 years. And so I've been relearning it in a sense, teaching myself new things and whatnot. And it's been a challenge. It's a lot of fun. And I think that when you play guitar for a long time, or any instrument, when you play it, you tend to just kind of play what you're already comfortable with and already know. I think most people fall into that rut. They don't even realize it, you know? They're not really getting any better at it, okay? So what I find myself now doing is, that's all I want to do is play new things in ways I've never done them before, you know, new styles, new ways of doing this, new that, whatever, and push myself. I want to get better. I want to be able to do things that, when you mentioned that violin solo and you were like, well, I'm never going to be able to play that. I'm in that mode now. I hear these things that for years I told myself, oh, I can't do that. Well, I want to do it now. You know, I want to do it. So I'm learning how to do it. And it's been a lot of fun. And I feel that I've taken my playing from wherever it was, and I've taken it, I'm using my hands. I don't know if anyone can see any of this stuff, but I've taken it from where it was, and I'd like to think it's you know, gone from here to here to here, and it's continuing to do so. And that's just a goal of mine now, you know, is really wanting to become a better player, and I'm doing it later in life. And so if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just have to be willing to spend the time and then have the discipline to do it, you know, to actually use that time. And I don't think there's any excuses anymore. And I know I'm kind of running out about this, so I apologize. Back when you and I first started to play guitar, there was no internet. Okay. And I'm assuming that you learned it a lot in a way that I did, which is, you know, we had records back then on vinyl, and you'd get an album and you'd have to slow it down from the 33 1/3 down to whatever it was, 16, or I don't even remember anymore. And, you know, everything was down an octave then, and it was weird sounding and this and that or whatever. And that's how you learn how to play. You know, you couldn't open up your computer and pull up a video of someone playing it and watch them play it and see where they were on the neck and how they were doing things. Better yet, now you've got that player or someone else telling you how they did it, showing you exactly how it's done and this and that or whatever. So I don't think there's any excuses anymore, whether you be an up and coming player or an older player. And now, as you pointed out, a lot of people have the time, learn that song that you've always wanted to learn how to play, or that solo, or a particular style or technique or whatever it is. We're not getting any younger, do it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm really forcing myself to do things that I've always wanted to do, but didn't know how to do, didn't spend the time on, or whatever. And it's a lot of fun. It really is. I was in a playing situation. I quit the band a month or two ago, or something like that. And I'm looking forward to the next project where I can, continue to put this stuff to use and whatever else I'm learning now to be able to put it to use. I think I mentioned last week about slide, buying a slide, because I've always I dabbled with it before, but I want to get better at it. And there's a player, and I forgot to mention, I don't think I mentioned his name last week, but there's a guy named Ariel Posen. He's a really good player, and he plays in a band from Canada that it's like the Brothers something, or the Something Brothers. And there's two guitar players in that band. And one is the singer and the guitar player, and then there's Ariel, and he's more the guitar player that sings background vocals. And both of them play slide in the band, and they were doing something that I never thought about doing before. It's like they play behind the slide with their finger, or fingers plural, in addition to the slide. So if you have the slide, and this wasn't planned, I'm sitting where I normally play guitar. Okay, so here's the slide, metal slide. So this one's for your little finger. So if you wear it on your little finger and you're playing, you've still got these fingers that you use to dampen the strings, but at times you can also fret, while you're playing a note on the slide, and they do that. And it sounds so amazing to me, So that's one of the things I've been trying to work on is stuff like that I never would have thought of before.
There's some great techniques too about bending behind the slide that you see a lot of dobro guys do. Like Jerry Douglas. Yeah. Well, they'll bend, they'll use their finger like this. They'll have the bar and they'll push up.
Okay.
And they can do almost what sound like steel effects.
Steel stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny you brought up playing stuff that's not comfortable for you. That stuff gets cliche and it gets to you play the same things over and over again. I feel that way, that there's a lot of writers that do that. And I always try to tell people when I talk to either students of mine about songwriting or just about people about songwriting, if you want to sit and try and try a tuning that you would never have used, my suggestion is write a song in that tuning, because you're going to use your ears and your head much more to come up with what chord sounds you want. And you're almost like a beginner on the instrument again, but I'm listening more instead of doing what your hand wants to do. And what you get out of that is you get much more succinct what's the brain is singing and what chord you're playing, as opposed to playing like, if you hear like cliche rock songs. I mean, you could listen, I don't want to knock Foghat, but like if you took like outside the Foghat hits, a lot of those songs just sound like generic rock because they were playing what was comfortable to them in rock and roll. Bad Company too, the songs by Bad Company we don't care for. It's generic rock. It's very uninspired from every aspect. And I even consider like Neil Young, who I am not a fan of, I think his songwriting sounds like he's just going through the chords that he knows and he's writing a melody to fit the chord. And I say this in mind thinking of The Needle and the Damage Done. It's not a pretty melody that you would sing. If you try to sing The Needle and the Damage Done without a guitar in your hand, you're going to realize it is a fucking horrible melody. It is terrible. Play the guitar to it and it works, because now you're playing these ridiculous, you're basically playing every Mel Bay guitar chord book which was your first year lesson. And I feel that's how Neil Young writes. Most people would say no disrespect to Neil Young. I don't care. I don't like him as a musician. I don't care for his songs. I think he's terrible. Harvest Moon, I'll give him Harvest Moon. I like that song. But I mean, at that point, it was only 40 years of writing songs before he kind of got the hint to maybe write a melody. But anyways, and to a point, Bob Dylan too sometimes just keeps the simple chords because he's writing simple melodies, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is, if you force yourself outside of your zone, if you ever see like guitar players who also play keyboards, they usually will say, "Oh, I wrote that big hit song on a keyboard," because they're not really that comfortable playing it. So they're actually writing more with what they're hearing in their head than what their fingers want to do. You know what I mean? Because when your fingers want to do something, if I sat here and picked up the guitar and played a riff, I'm going to play the same old riffs that I'm comfortable and I want to play. And you can see like every guy who does a YouTube video and he's like, "Let me show you this pedal." And I'm like, I get to hear this guy's riffs again. And some of the riffs are good and some of the riffs are not. One thing I do, like I watched Neil Diamond, the jazz singer, the other day. And for anybody wanting to know, I am heterosexual, although there will be arguments after I told you I watched the jazz singer. Thank you. No, but anyways, I watched the jazz singer and the song Songs of Life comes on and I'm like, ooh, I love those changes. So I went and I figured them out. I went and learned them, and there's some really clever stuff, and it's really simple, but it's really clever. And I probably wouldn't have thought of a couple of the chords that are in the song. And for that, I'll probably end up writing something using a chord or two from there that I liked in that song. But
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's I thought it was funny when you said the heterosexual thing in Neil Diamond. I don't know. I like Neil Diamond myself. I mean, you go back to the 60s and, very, a really good pop songwriter.
Sure.
That 3-minute pop song that would have been, typical in that era. And this makes me think of, you and I had a conversation earlier today, and I had mentioned that a performer, and I prefaced it with, I'm probably one of the few guys that likes this performer, which is Richard Marx. And
I wouldn't say you're one of the few guys who likes him. Maybe one of the few straight men. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go. Okay. I'm one of the few straight guys that like him. And I've always, he's great songwriter, this, that, whatever. And it came up in conversation because we were talking about there's not a lot to do right now for a lot of people out there. And I guess these performers are in that same boat, because they can't go to it, if they can't do anything. So he's doing these live things from his home like once a week, and he's calling it beachin'. I guess a take on bitchin'. And in the first one, he said he initially wanted to call it Beachin' with Dick, but he said he got voted down on that one. And but long and short of it, he's performing his songs, and he said he'll take requests and he'll do other songs that aren't his. And I don't know how many of these he's done yet, but I watched the first one, and wow, he's still got it. I mean, he's hitting all the notes. He plays great. He sounds great. There's no post-production on this. It's just like an iPhone on a desk away from him, and he's just playing and singing, and he sounds great,
Yeah, no, he sings great. He wrote great songs.
For him and other people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he's had a great career, as seen by the background. You're looking out over Malibu Beach. It's very clear where it's amazingly clear where he is. He's right on PCH in Malibu.
Yeah, he's living good. Or living large.
That house has got to be somewhere between $4 and $10 million, because every house on that.
And he said the beach house, which makes me think there's another house.
Absolutely. They all live in two houses out there. All those people that live on PCH have houses in the hills in Hollywood.
Okay. And, he has his own fortune, and we'll call it a fortune because I'm sure it's a pretty good chunk of change. That's slightly diminished because he got a divorce a few years back from his first wife. But he remarried, and he remarried someone that's really successful too. So, that's merging of the fortunes. He married Daisy Fuentes. Do you remember her from MTV?
Yes, and she's I used to see her around in LA quite a bit. And
Okay.
she's also like cheering him on in one of the videos.
Yeah, yeah. I guess she's there, and yeah, she's clapping for him and doing this and doing that.
Right.
And I think she's doing some other stuff. Because he mentioned I watched some other videos. I was watching one where he was talking with Rick Springfield of all. I guess they're friends.
He also lives in Malibu.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's done extremely well over the years, really long career. And big fan of, or I am a big fan of his guitar player that he had for those years. Tim Pierce.
Absolutely. Tim Pierce was the guy they got after Neil Giraldo.
Right. Well, Neil produced the first album, and
he didn't produce it. He didn't produce it. Neil played on the first album. He was hired by Keith Olsen, who produced that album.
Oh wow! Okay. Wow.
Yeah, Keith Olsen
produced.
I'm a huge Rick Springfield fan.
Oh, dude, this is too weird. Okay.
Huge.
So am I. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Keith, well, and we're calling it the first album, but we really mean it to be the first successful album. He had a bunch of records before that. But the album's called Working Class Dog. Yes. And then on the second album, Tim Pierce plays, where they have Don't Talk to Strangers on Success Hasn't Spoiled Me Yet.
Yeah, and you know what? The tones, and actually that was still produced by Olsen, the second album, right?
It was. I don't know if it was. I don't know.
I think it was. I think it was because but long and short of it, the guitar tones are so good on the second album.
It's a better album.
Yeah.
I think they're the best on the third album. Living in Oz.
Third album's pretty hot. And you know what? Every time I think of the third album, I think of Affair of the Heart. Okay. Yeah. First single.
My favorite track on that album was Souls.
Good song. Great song.
Great solo. Great song.
But I wanted to make a comment about Affair of the Heart, the solo. You want to talk about having the confidence to do what Tim Pierce did in that solo. It's like one note for like 3/4 of the solo. He just bends this note and hangs on it and lets it start to feed back and just hangs and hangs and hangs, and then does a nice fast run at the end, and that's it, you know. But he, to be able to do that, because it's so minimal, but yet it fit, it worked, blah 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 blah.
Tim was also playing with he also did around that time the Bon Jovi, the original, he did the solo on Runaway.
You're right.
That was during that time.
He just dropped the video because I'm a big Tim Pierce fan, so I watch his videos on YouTube. And he just dropped a video yesterday, maybe, where he talks about he did. I'm assuming that you might like this person too, because it sounds like we like a lot of the same stuff. But John Waite, John Waite, he was in the Babies and he had a solo career.
Yes.
The first album, Ignition, and you had Change, which was the first single, which I love that. I love that song. And we got another connection here. Neil Giraldo did produce the first John Waite album, Ignition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And guess who did the solo on Ignition? Tim Pierce. So he's doing this lesson in this video that he just dropped where he's showing you the solo to Ignition. And then he goes a little bit further, at least in a storytelling sense. And he tells you, we were cutting this at this studio. And in the studio, he was kind of working part-time with John Bon Jovi, and his cousin, I think it was his cousin, owned the studio or managed it or something. And I guess John liked what he heard. And so he invited Tim back to do the solo and some other guitar parts, and ended up being the solo on Runaway. So it all started.
It was before they actually even hired or found Richie Sambora.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And you know what? No diss to Richie, because Richie's a really good player and he's a lot of great solos over the years. But I couldn't imagine Runaway without the Tim Pierce solo. I mean,
that's right. It's great.
it's such a good solo. He's such a good player. He still has it, blah, 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 blah. But so back to John Waite. So when I was living in Nashville, I like John Waite. So he was playing at the Exit Inn years and years ago. So I went to go see him. My ex worked for Clear Channel at the time. So she got me some good tickets or something. I used to go to a lot of shows free. I was lucky, blah, blah, blah. And so I had some extra tickets. So I brought some friends. I guess none of that really matters. Long and short of it, I end up in the bathroom before the show. It's a small bathroom. This isn't a big place. So they got 2 stand-up urinals. And lo and behold, John Waite walks in to use the bathroom. And he's standing right next to me. And I'm just thinking to myself, I can't say anything to him. I mean,
right.
Because we're peeing, what am I going to say, So I never said anything to him, but, so that's my John Waite stories.
You should have sat there in the urinal just singing, "We always wished for money." We always see if you get him singing along.
Oh, that would have been hilarious. Yeah.
Oh, God. So I'll tell you, I'm a huge Rick Springfield fan. The album after Living in Oz was Tao.
Right.
Which I love that. It's just the state of the heart.
State of the heart.
I love that tune. And Celebrate the Youth was on that album.
Yeah.
And then, which I think was a very underrated album, was Rock of Life, which I think is fantastic.
Rock of Life was way underrated. I think what was going on at that point was, people peak in their careers because the career is not a straight line. It's an up and down thing. And the public, their attention span is short. And so you've got that window where you're really hot, and then you got a window where you cool down. He was in the cool down part, I think, at that point, because that album,
songwriting wise, I think it's the best album.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you've got like Honeymoon in Beirut.
Yes,
killer tune, and
awesome.
the Rock of Life itself. That is such a cool song.
My favorite song on the album, One Reason.
I don't remember that one.
One reason. I bow to the east, but I kneel to the west. And the solo on that is my favorite solo on any Rick Springfield album, and it's not Tim Pierce.
Who is it?
Dan Huff.
Oh, well, Huff's a killer player, man.
He's ridiculous.
He's
one of my all-time favorites. The thing I love about Dan Huff is he was a metal guy. He had his band Giant in the early 90s, late 80s. Plays the solo to Danger Zone. He plays the solo on another Kenny Loggins song. I think Meet Me Halfway. Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
Meet Me Halfway. He plays the solo on. And then he moves back to Nashville because he was from Nashville.
Him and his brother.
He produced, what's that?
Him and his brother.
Right. Well, his brother was in the band Giant with him.
Yeah.
It was him and his brother's band. And then they go back, and now he's doing country. He's done Carrie Underwood, Faith Hill. He produced a great Megadeth record called Cryptic Writings.
That second part of his career, he became much more successful as a producer than he was.
Well, that to me, that shows you the sensitivity of the artist, that he can go in and listen to a country artist and be like, this is what you need to do here. And then go and listen to Megadeth. And Nick Menza used to play in my band from like 2003 to 2005. Nick was in my band, The Big Angry. And I asked him about making that record. We talked about a lot of different production stuff we worked with. And when he told me that Dan put him in this big sound stage, and he wanted the drums to have this certain sound, and he was like, the guy was meticulous and really got out of the guys, things that he wanted, and was, and here's a guy that's basically been doing, when he did the Megadeth record, he was already knee deep in country stuff. I think he had just come off a Faith Hill record. But Dan Huff as a guitar player is a monster shredder. He is on the level of Lukather, and he's like a Tim Pierce and Lukather, but he has more of a Steve Vai in him as well.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean he's a clean, more shredder type of a guy. You listen to him in Giant, he's a monster.
Yeah, very, very good player. And, if you're a guitar player, maybe of a certain era, you know who he is. If you're not a guitar player and definitely not of that era, you're not going to know who he is. His name's under the radar.
I'm trying to think of that song Giant had, something with the word time in it. Let me look that up because it's gonna. Everybody should look up this song. Let me just look what it was called.
Everyone should look up Giant in general, and or talking before about what's available online, and there's no excuse to not to learn, not to better yourself on the instrument. Back in the day, those players would do videos, and you could buy or rent the videos, instructional videos. And Dan Huff did an instructional video, and I know it's on YouTube. Somebody threw it up there.
Absolutely.
It's good. I mean, I recommend people should take a look at it. There's
song in the album is called "Time to Burn."
Okay. Oh, and nice.
I think that's the one he shows in the video because it's like this pentatonic F sharp minor thing. He's like, but the way he plays it, the sound, the technique, he's just a really great player that you wouldn't expect that this guy later would go out and produce some of the biggest country hits in the 90s and 2000s. I love the stuff he did with Carrie Underwood on her first album.
I'm in the Northeast Ohio area, and one of the first call session guys in Nashville for a very long time now, I'm talking like over a decade, is a guy from this area. Go figure. And it's Tom Bukovic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know that name.
Yeah, he's from, I think he's from the east side of Cleveland, I think.
Yeah.
I know I met him and talked to him when I lived in Nashville, and we were talking about the Cleveland area. And I know we talked about some clubs in that side of town, and that makes me think he's from that side of town, but he might not be. But he's from this general area. Really good.
I mean, the Ohio State put out a lot of great fucking bands and musicians over the years. Look at all the funk bands that came out. Chuck Rainey came out of Ohio.
Yeah. And speaking of guitar players, we just mentioned Tom. We got Joe Walsh out of this area.
Joe Walsh,
we have Neil Giraldo, we talked about earlier, out of this area. And then we also have Phil Kagi out of this area. That's a great player. So
Phil's great.
Yeah, 3 really good guitar players that really, and once again, Tom Bukovic earlier, and none of those guys really sound like the other guy. They're very different players.
I love the way Neil Giraldo played. When he did like Promises in the Dark. Those.
Yeah, when I think of Neil, he used to like to, Pat would sing a note on the end of a chorus, and he'd come in on the solo on the same note.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's almost like a saxophone trick, though. A lot of 50s and early 60s sax guys used to do that, where they would come in on that note.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you could tell he's musically rounded, that he was picking up on that. But that Promises in the Dark record, I just love that. I think her second album, Crimes of Passion, I think was from 1980. I think that album, and I forget the name of the album afterwards. Was it called Promises in the Dark?
I'm pretty sure it was, because that's the one she's doing a silhouette sitting on some steps outside of a building or something.
Yeah, and then Get Nervous was I think those 3 albums are like a 1, 2, 3 punch from her, where I think there was a great band going on. She was at the height of her thing. It's funny, you say something about people, their window being small, like Rick Springfield. Rick Springfield was like a pop rock guy. And pop rock was falling by the wayside. By the time he came out and did, when he did Affair of the Heart, he was still topical. But I think what happened was he did that Tao album, and Celebrate the Youth was a little bit noisy. And I think it drove his fans that wanted to hear Jesse's Girl away, where guys like you and me are like, listen to the guitar tone on State of the Heart. I'm waiting here for you in the state I'm in. Right, that guitar tone, that super glassy. I work at night. Phenomenal. I mean, as a guitar player, I'm like, this album's fucking great. But I think the fans went away. And then he came back with Rock of Life, which would have made the fans super happy. But now they were gone listening to Poison Talk Dirty to Me. They were listening to Way Cool Jr. by Rat. Obviously, everybody knows I'm kidding. Nobody was listening to Way Cool Jr. by Rat. The song sucks. Clearly, I jest. And grunge came along and they're like, yep, that's it. Goodbye. And it ended like that. That's how you know when something doesn't fade away and it just, boom, it's gone. Years ago, people used to say rap is a phase. Remember we were like in the 80s and it was the boopity boopity, like they're playing basketball. Well, I'm the do, and everyone was like, yeah, rap's dead, right? Rap's not going to last long. And rap evolved. Rap became, it has its thing, and like everyone, if you're going to say rap sucks, every kind of music sucks and every kind of music's great. You have to find the good in it. There's good and bad in everyone. We learn to live. No, some of it's really good. Some rap is excellent and some of it's horrible. And in the same respect, some of that hair metal that was popular was just terrible. Fucking awful.
Yeah, there was some really bad stuff, and I think that happens with every genre of music that becomes popular. You get a lot of bands that jump in on the bandwagon because the other record companies are looking for, bands that sound like this band that hit it really big, so they want their version of that band. So now all of a sudden you have 10 bands that all kind of are doing the same thing, and at the end of the day, how much of that is really going to be good? Because there was some really bad rock, metal, hair metal, whatever you want to call it, from that era, and there was some really good stuff.
Oh, good stuff wasn't played enough. In other words, do you remember a band called Fifth Angel?
No, I don't think
they had a song. Oh, look up the song "Midnight Love." Check out "Midnight Love" by Fifth Angel, and you'll go, how is this not a huge hit? Howard Stern used to use it for his Channel 9 show out of New Jersey as the theme. It was phenomenal. The opening guitar solo hits you with a ton of lead. The vocals were good. It was so much better than anything that I can remember Poison ever playing.
Oh, well, Poison's Poison. I'm not going to whatever on those guys, but hopefully the people that listen to this, they'll get some things out of it. Like they'll go back and the band that you just mentioned and the song you just mentioned, some people will find it and maybe get turned on to it. And I'd like to throw something into that pile for them maybe to go back and get turned on to, other than maybe anything that Tim Pierce has played on, just go find Tim Pierce. He's had he did a solo album way early on. It was after Rick anyhow. So, but that was a long time ago. Called Guitar Land. Okay, so Guitar Land by Tim Pierce. It's a great record. The thing I'd like for someone to go back and listen to is there was a band, I think this might even be late 70s, early 80s. Okay, and the band was called Airborne. And they had one album, and that was it. But it's a great album. There's a song on it called Soldier of Fortune, which I just love, and the guitar tone's killer. It's got a killer guitar solo, this, that, whatever. There's a lot of other songs on there. It's very much I actually thought it very much like a Hit Machine band. I mean, all the songs are really good. I don't know why the album didn't go like further.
Really? But with that, I remember Airplay from that era. A band called Airplay. That was Jay Graydon and David Foster's band.
Yeah. No, this was Airborne, and there were people in the band that moved on to other things. Mike Beard, the drummer, ended up playing with Journey on the Raised on Radio album, and he toured with the band on that album.
He was the guy that replaced Steve Smith.
Steve Smith. And then there was a guy, the singer of the band Airborne. I'm pretty sure his name. I was going to say Benchmont Trent, but that's what's his face, Tom Petty, keyboard player. Yeah. I can't remember this guy's name right now, but he became speaking of a guy that was maybe in a band and then became a big time producer, this guy became a big time producer and produced a bunch of hair metal stuff in the 80s and did a bunch of really big albums. I'm zoning out right now on what bands.
Oh, that's funny. And
produced.
Bob Rock, who produced he was the guitar player in the band the Payolas.
Okay.
That had that song Eyes of a Stranger, they were a Canadian band. You got the eyes of a stranger. That was his band. Let me tell you, if you're in a band and you have Steve Smith as your drummer and you fire him, you're an asshole. And your band is going down the tubes. And that's what happened to Journey.
Well, you know what I think that there was people were flexing control muscles at that point.
And Steve Perry was.
Steve Perry was. And because you know what happened is Ross Valerie was asked to leave the band or left the band. So you lost the original bass player. And then you lost not the original drummer, but the second drummer, Steve Smith. And they were replaced by Randy Jackson, who ended up being one of those judges on
American Idol. Yeah.
American Idol. And then you had Mike Beard, who's nicknamed the Foot, actually, because he's got such a strong foot.
But Steve Smith and Ross Valerie were so good together, and that band was so good, and they're both great players. And to me, it's like for Steve Perry, I don't know what his problem was, but it's a problem. Like, whatever one of the things, I know one of the fights was about he wanted to call the album Raised on Radio. And they had an agreement, I guess, early on in Journey that every album was going to have a one-word title. That was their thing. And he was the one coming in to change it. And those guys got mad, and that's what started a lot of it.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. And it's like, way to flex like you just put out a solo record, which was good. I loved Oh Sherry. I loved Foolish Heart. And my favorite song on that record was She's Mine, which is like, at the time it was a hit single, but nobody ever plays it now. But look up She's Mine, Steve Perry. Friggin' great song. If somebody were to cover it today, it would be a hit. And then, but to fire, I mean, Steve Smith is a drummer on the level of Vinnie Colaiuta. I mean, the guy's a monster. The drumming that he plays on the song, I don't know if you're familiar with the album Frontiers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a song called Trouble Child that's got this sick 6/8 feel. It's such a great feel. To lose that drummer over arguing or whatnot, and to me, he was in the band, he joined the band in 78 or 79. They right after Ainsley Dunbar left.
Was he on? I think he was on Evolution. That was the first.
Yes, he's on everything.
So he's on Evolution.
Infinity is the only album with Steve Perry he's not on.
Okay, so he's on Evolution, and then he's on the live album right after
Captured.
that. And the next album would be Escape.
No.
Yeah.
No, he's on Evolution and Departure, Captured, then Escape.
Oh, you're right. You are right.
Yeah.
I stand corrected, sir.
And right before they did Escape, before they were going to start working on Escape, they were touring, I think, Departure. I think. I'm only going by the... And Greg Raleigh wanted to quit the band. And the Babies were the opening act, and the Babies were in the middle of breaking up. And he told Jonathan Cain, you should be in this band. This band is right for you. And so he went to Journey and said, Jonathan Cain's going to be looking for a gig. And that's how Jonathan Cain joined the band. And I think it was the best thing they ever did. In fact, I think those two albums would be considered equal if the record company didn't fuck around with the Frontiers album. You know, what happened was they had the album laid out how they wanted it. And the label was like, no, you got too many hit songs on this. They took 2 songs off because they thought that it was too strong and they wanted to milk out other things. Huh. So Only the Young, which they used for
a movie.
Yes, they used it for Vision Quest.
Yeah.
Only the Young was taken off of Frontiers, And there was another song called Ask the Lonely, which was from the Two of the Kind soundtrack. Two of a Kind. When you're feeling down and out, you just ask the lonely. Yeah, and
I like that song a lot, actually. I like that one.
It's great.
I don't know why.
Yeah, so that would have been, I always consider those two songs part of that album. And doing so, I say those two albums, Escape and Frontiers, are effing phenomenal from Journey. And I think it was a huge mistake to ever fucking fire Steve Smith and Ross Valerie. And now they've done it again.
I was just going to say that. I didn't know if you knew that. I was just going to say they got let go again, and it's some kind of weird power struggle behind the scenes with owning the brand Journey or the name, being able to tour under it, whatever. I don't know. Who knows how much truth is in any of what we're hearing, in regards to that and so on and so on. And the reason I say that is because there was a lot of friction between, I thought, the band almost as a whole and Jonathan Cain. I thought there was a lot of friction between the band and him. He was like on one side and they were all over here. And I won't go into what the friction was about, because everything we hear is hearsay in a sense. So who knows exactly this, that, whatever. And so I really kind of thought that that's where you were going to see a split. I thought that Cain was going to be on the outs, and now it's not the case. Now it's him and Neil on one side, and it was the other guys on the other side. Yeah,
I think if you go back to the big albums that I just mentioned, even earlier, the main writers were Greg Raleigh, who was before Jonathan Cain.
Yeah.
Steve Perry, Neil Schon, and then Jonathan Cain. So the two guys who were in the band left, Jonathan Cain and Neil Schon, are responsible for the writing of the material.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care. Nobody's going to sit there and say, I own the brand, when the person that put the brand, that could say, I have more songs on the album that made us who we are. I just think that when you start getting involved, like the Eagles, Joe Walsh was never a member of the Eagles. He's just a hired gun. The Eagles were Glenn Frey, Don Henley, and Don Felder. Everybody else was hired gun after Bernie Ledden and Randy Meisner left the band. Nobody ever else was made a member of the band except for Felder. And then they got rid of him, or tried to, when they had that whole lawsuit. But yeah, I think these people are out of there. And, and Henley is got to be one of rock and roll's biggest cocksuckers anyways, because he's like, I'm out to help support the artists and the writers. Yeah, meanwhile, you're stealing the writing of a guy in your own fucking band, you piece of shit. Who gives a shit what you have to say? How about this? Just, if you're in a band, everyone's an equal member of the band. If you're writing the songs, you make a little bit more money in the publishing. Okay, you deserve it. You wrote the songs. But everybody should be a part of the band. And then if you're not going to be a part of the band, or you're going to bring guys back in the band, like Journey, Steve Smith and Ross Valerie got fired by Steve Perry. The management, because Steve Perry put his foot down. But when Steve Perry's gone and it's Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain, and they bring those guys back, they should be like, you guys are part of the band. You should have never been let out of the band. And anyone that's going to say, you're negating all the years with Dean Castronova. And yes, I am negating those years, because those years don't give a shit. Those guys didn't put out a fucking record that anyone gives two fucks about. Nobody knows any songs off any of those records, except for the four people who are fucking diehard fans that have pictures of Neil Schon on their fucking wall. But for the most part, nobody gives a fuck. If it's not on Escape and Frontiers, and maybe there's a couple of songs on Raised on Radio that I do like, but if it's not on Frontiers and Escape, nobody gives a shit. Yeah, Infinity. I mean, I don't like Wheel in the Sky. I do like Lights, even though that was really just a Steve Perry song. And what else is on that album? Oh, I do like Feeling That Way, and I do like Anytime, which was a Rob Fleischman song.
Yeah, and those are the back-to-back tunes. I like those a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Fleischman wrote the one of them, and then Greg Raleigh wrote the other.
That I don't know.
I have a feeling Fleischman brought that song in.
And you are right about Lights. I mean, Lights was a Steve Perry song.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that.
He had that demo. That's what kind of got him that audition in the band, was because of Lights.
Yeah, and what I didn't know is that he's a drummer.
Oh, he is? Yeah, I mean, I think Lights, initially it was When the Lights Go Down over L.A., not over the Bay.
I didn't know that.
Because he was a Fresno guy.
Okay. Drummer or bass player? You know what? I may stand corrected. It's drums or bass or both. I actually think it might be both. I think it might be both.
I mean, he was great. I'm just going off because I saw it recently in the news. Those guys are fired again. And it's like, listen, people. I go see the four of them with a fake singer. Maybe. I would not go see Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain playing with a different drummer and bass player and a different singer. Calling it Journey, my response to them is fuck you. Go yourself. You know what? Neil Schon, get your guitar on, go out and perform Lies, No More Lies from that whatever album, or go out on the road with Sammy. Do whatever you got to fucking do, but don't call yourself Journey with fucking two guys from 2 out of 5. No one cares.
You know what? We're speaking of Neil Schon projects, Bad English, and that brings us back to another Babies member that he played with. In the band Bad English, you had Jonathan Cain, but you also had John Waite.
Right. That's right.
And
speaking of the Babies, by the way.
Okay.
On Thursday, on my one-on-one, I'll be doing an interview with Tony Brock.
Oh, no shit. Very cool.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. They were here in the Northeast Ohio area within the last year and a half, I think. I think it was not last November, maybe the November before that. And I didn't go see them. I wanted to. They were playing at Kent State, has some kind of venue at the school, and they were playing there. And the Babies is, it's the drummer, it's Brock, it's the guitar player who I'm zoning out on his name, and I do apologize. And so it's two of the original members. They had a bass player singer. So definitely filling the John Waite role, doing both of those as John did, and he didn't sound bad. And I don't know, obviously some other kind of keyboard player, but that was a big band for me when I was growing up. Was the Babies? I mean, the Head First album, not being their first or second album, that would have been their third album at that point. But they had good songs.
We're gonna go full circle here. Do you remember the song "Head First" by the Babies?
Oh, yeah. I was playing that in a band not that long ago. Yeah.
Rick Springfield's Me and Johnny is almost the same chorus.
Really?
Me and Johnny, we're going out tonight. We're going to do it right. It's almost the same, I'm telling you.
Oh, my God.
When I heard Me and Johnny by Rick Springfield on Living in Oz, I'm like, this song sounds so familiar to me. And then I'm like, oh, it's Head First.
Oh my gosh.
Here's another one. Did you know the song Christina? Christina.
Yeah.
Which was actually a Bachman Turner Overdrive song with different lyrics. And he changed the lyrics and kept the song. It's a song called Jamaica by BTO.
I know that you and I have talked before about we like 70s detective shows,
Oh, yes.
And speaking of 70s detective shows, Rockford Files, lo and behold, guess one of the actors in one of his episodes would have been Rick Springfield.
Wow.
And he played a typecasting here, I guess, or he was a rock star, long and short of it. And
hilarious.
He was having a big party at his house. I think they threw a piano into the pool in that episode or something like that. It was a really good episode.
He was actually on an episode of Supernatural. He played like the devil in Supernatural not too long ago.
You know what? And he was also played in. He was in one episode, and I think it was only one episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, really? Right now, people in the comments are saying, he was also Dr. Noah Drake. Yeah, we know General Hospital, folks.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, so wait, he was on that. It's funny, you can name musicians who appeared on cop shows because Johnny Cash was on Columbo and Neil Diamond was in an episode of Mannix.
Ooh, that I didn't know.
First season, he's the singer in the bar when they go into a bar in the first season of Mannix.
Nice. It makes you wonder what the connection was. Like, was he friends with Mike Connors or the producer of the show or something? You know, like, why is he doing that? You know what I mean?
I don't know if you know this, but first of all, let me just say this. When I was talking about Neil Diamond, all of Neil Diamond's early songs are hip as shit. They're all great stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everyone always loves the old Neil Diamond. Now, Neil Diamond was managed by Don Kirshner. And Don Kirshner was the music supervisor for a television show called The Monkees. That is how the Monkees do the song, When I Saw Her Face, because that's a Neil Diamond song. And It's a Little Bit Me, It's a Little Bit You is also a Neil Diamond song. That's how he got his songs on the show. I would imagine that Kirshner probably also had his hand in somebody else and maybe knew somebody from Mannix and was like, hey, bring in my artist. And
yeah,
I'm sure it had something to do with Don Kirshner with TV. But anyways, when I was saying I'm a Neil Diamond fan and that it's gay, I'm saying the later Neil Diamond stuff is what I'm talking about when he was doing like September Morn. We danced until the night became. I mean, then it was a little schlocky.
You know what I mean? Love on the Rocks?
Oh, I love it. It's so gay, it's great. Love on the Rocks. Ain't no surprise. Pour me a drink and I'll tell you some love. I mean, just the ridiculousness of it. Forever in Blue Jeans.
Oh, yeah.
Money Talks. It's like, it is some of the most ridiculous songs that I love. If you know what I mean. What's that one? Like saying I love you. Yesterday's, right? Remember that one? Or Longfellow Serenade. Such were the plans I made.
Well, you know what we're talking about now is I would term it guilty pleasures. Like you like something that's kind of cheesy. And it's a guilty pleasure. And I would think that the songs you're mentioning would fall into that. And we all have it. I mean, there was some stuff that I like that, I probably shouldn't tell anybody at all. Whether it be songs or TV shows or whatever, I mean, right now, okay, I'll tell you one. And it's really more because, at least the one I'm going to tell you, is because I had such a crush on this woman that, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter what she was in, I would watch it. It doesn't matter, But I was always a big Linda Hamilton fan. And so she was
really? Sarah Connor.
Yeah. But prior to that, she did a lot of stuff. The first thing I saw her in was this movie called Tag, the Assassination Game. Okay. And it's a cool movie. You can find it on YouTube, the whole movie. You can watch the whole thing. And when I first saw her, I just thought, oh my God, she's amazing. And so I watched her in all kinds of stuff. She was in Children of the Corn, Stephen King movie.
She was in Children of the Corn?
Yeah.
With Malachi and Isaac?
You got it. Outlander. So she was the woman that was with the doctor, the husband that was driving in the car. That was Linda Hamilton. And but she was in that Beauty and the Beast show. So I was watching that show. I was gigging back then, so I used to have to tape them on VHS tapes so I could watch them when
I was more playing. Of a Linda Carter fan back then. Linda Carter?
Oh yeah, Wonder Woman. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Man. The greatest was when she was on Battle of the Network Stars.
Oh yeah.
And you have an absolutely absurd cast of everybody from the networks competing in these things. And you have Howard Cosell making it like this is a real sport. Getting on the diving board now is a young Linda Carter. the determination, it's like he would just go on like this is a real sport. It's like, yeah, they're going into a tug of war over there. A young Robert Conrad, Telly Savalas, and Gabe Kaplan are arguing now over who will go first in the.
That's hilarious.
A young Scott Baio is now arguing with the judges. It's like, come on, guys, can we please? They're all at Pepperdine University. You know, what they don't show is craft services had the biggest probably spread of food out for everybody. And they're like, a young Linda Carter on the diving board now, right? Meanwhile, there wasn't a peep. She's in a bathing suit and everyone's just like.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking is I want to hear the outtakes, you know, when they're like off mic talking, because she was built to kill, you know, and so I could just imagine what was going through every guy's mind, as you pointed out, when she was there. Everyone's
the best show
focused.
Ever. That is the one thing. It's the best show ever, and it is the one thing that they destroyed with television by bringing in all these channels you can no longer have, like Battle of the Network Stars, because who the hell's watching network TV anymore? People mention a show to me on network TV, and I'm like, what? Is it on Netflix? No, it's on ABC. It's got commercials? Yeah, I'm not watching it. You know what I mean?
That and you can't watch it when you want to watch it. It's on at a certain day and time.
Yeah, yes,
yeah. Things are so different now. Going back to what, one of the earlier things in this is like, how in a lot of ways things are better. Because if you want to learn a song now, you literally can have the person that wrote it showing you how to play it. If you want to watch something, you can watch it when you want to watch it. You can stop it and then come back to it. And then there it is, waiting for you to watch a day later, 2 days later, a week later, whatever. You can rewatch it whenever you want to rewatch it. You can binge watch a whole season at once, like when these shows come out. And I know we're talking about a bunch of different things, but another heads up on something maybe the people, anybody that watches this might want to check out. And it's on Netflix right now, but it's a sci-fi TV show. It's called Happy. Okay. Happy ! It's got Chris Maloney in it, who was on that Law and Order SVU.
Sure.
And he's the main star. And I'm going to forget this comedian's name. He was on The King of Queens as a support character.
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, Patton Oswalt. He is. They have an animated character that's part of this show, and that's actually he's Happy, the animated character. So it's his voice. But this show is the most over the top. It's not formulaic at all. I mean, you have to watch this show.
It's called.
Yeah, it's really one of the better things on TV right now. It really took me by surprise. A guy where I work told me about it. And when he's telling me about it, I'm like, just his description made me go, this sounds weird. I don't even think I even want to watch that. And so I'm clicking around on Netflix, and there it is. And I'm like, well, he told me about it, and he said it was good. I mean, I'll watch 10 minutes of it. Man, you're 5 minutes into it. And right away I was like, holy shit, this thing is really good. And so that was it. I was hooked. And so I blew through the first season, and then I had to wait for the second season to come on the Netflix, and now it's on there. So I think I'm on my third episode of the second season right now, and it's as good as the first. I mean, they came out swinging, and it's worth watching, people in the internet land. So you should watch it.
Interesting. Have you ever seen a movie, when you said Happy, have you ever seen a movie called Happiness?
I don't think so.
Todd Solondz film with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Dylan Baker. I recommend it to anybody who wants to be disturbed while they're quarantined in their house. Look up a movie called Happiness and watch it. And also, lastly, I found this pick in I used this pick in my case, and literally right now I just realized it's got a music store name on it called Miccarelli Music in the 724 area code, which I have no idea how I would have obtained this pick. If anyone has been to Miccarelli Music, good or bad, let me know in the comments and tell me how I would have picked up this pick. Maybe I was there and grabbed a pick sometime. I don't know. I don't know what 724 is off the top of my head.
Hey, speaking of guitar picks, I was thinking about asking you, like, so what do you use for guitar picks?
I use, which is hard to see here, but I use the Ultex from Dunlop, the 1.4s.
Well, this is too weird. I'm starting to think we're brothers from another mother or something. Okay, so here's the pick that I use. It's an Ultex, okay, but it's a 2.0, and I drill a hole in it so I can grip it better and I won't lose it. But it's an Ultex, so go figure.
I have a pile of the 2.0s,
Yeah.
but I just find them a hair too thick,
Uh-huh.
because I like the pick to be as thin as possible, but as stiff as possible.
Okay.
And 1.4 is that happy medium. And we call them Ultex, but they're really the Ultex Sharp.
So this one I haven't used yet, so that's why it's pointier. Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah.
I pre-drill them out. I made a little jig that I can just drop the pick in and stick the drill down in there and drill them. I'll drill like a half a dozen or so at a time.
Yeah.
And I love these picks.
Otherwise, I would use this, which is an extra heavy Fender.
Okay.
Regular tortoise pick, but extra heavy. I use the extra heavies on my acoustics because these have a little bit too much of a harsher sound on the acoustic.
I gotcha.
Because you can hear the attack, whereas I like it a little softer. All right, everybody, we're going to call this one today. We hope everyone's doing well, washing their hands, staying safe. Don't forget to wear a mask and a condom when you go out. I'm kidding. You don't need a mask.
Ooh, good one.
Thank you. All righty. Mike O, always good to see you. We'll talk soon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the next one. Peace out.
All right. Very good.